Hello, hello. So hopefully you're watching this on Thursday. I'm gonna go over really fast what Thursday should look like and then what Friday should look like because Friday will be a quiz day, so there won't be a video to watch. So today for Thursday, make sure you check your answers from Wednesday's assignment. In this video, I'm gonna post like a answer key so you can check Wednesday's assignment. I also am able to now go into wherever you submit things and actually mark up and put some notes on like your actual paper that you submit. So make sure you check that out. Hopefully I've already gotten through all of those by Thursday. The second thing, let me know if you need help and we can set up a conference for Thursday. So hopefully you got my message in Canvas or through Remind that I'm going to be having Canvas conferences all day tomorrow, Thursday, during like your typical class period. If you cannot make your typical class period, I don't want to force you to come to another class period because I know other classes are meeting during their specific time. So if you can't meet during then I'm willing to work a little bit after hours tomorrow. But I'm only going to do that if you guys ask me for help. So I won't even make a conference for regular classes if no one reaches out to me. Okay? And then also for Thursday, you're going to complete the review to study for your quiz on Friday. So the last half of this video is just going to be me going through some problems if you want to do those with me, or if you want to pause the video when I get done doing all this stuff, and then you can try the review and then just go back and check with the rest of the video. So for Friday, you're going to take the assessment quiz. So it's going to be in the assessment category, so that's 70% category. And you're going to take it during your typical class time. So your typical class time, if you forget what time they start, I thought I was going to put that in here, but I guess I forgot. But first period, you are not taking in first. You're going to take it during fourth. But all my other classes, if you're in second, you take it during second period, and so on and so forth. So if you have any questions about that, let me know. If you have something coming up, you shouldn't, but just make me aware, and then I can keep it open a little bit longer for you. It's better for you to tell me before Friday so I can make those arrangements, because after the test has been given and it's already out, it's really hard for me to change any of the due dates. It's a lot easier if you tell me beforehand. Next thing, make sure you start at the correct time, because I know if you start, like say class starts at 9:30 and you don't start till 10, it's going to lock as soon as your class period is up. So like if my class starts at 9:30 and it's over at 10:30, if you don't start till 10, you're not going to get that full hour or 55 minutes to do the whole quiz. It's going to lock as soon as that class period is up. So make sure you start it on time so you have enough time. Use your notes. Don't use Google. I've caught a lot of you using Google, and I can tell you're using Google for the most part. Just as long as you're using your notes, you'll be fine. Like, this is not supposed to be a very rigorous task right now. I'm trying to make this as easy as possible. Okay. Also, when you're taking the quiz, have a sheet of paper out, because doing math just on a computer screen is really hard. So if you're not writing these problems out and actually doing them on paper, that's going to be really difficult, I think. So make sure you just have a sheet of paper out. I'm not going to require you submit anything. So I'm kind of taking a leap of faith with this one, that you guys are going to do this with integrity and really try hard at it, because it is worth some points for the assessment. So some of you that are right on the cusp of failing, this is still important that you do well on this quiz. Okay. This part, things to know, things to study. Know the properties of a parallelogram. Know my properties of parallelogram, not Google's. Know how to use these properties to solve for like different algebra type of problems. If you don't know what I mean by that, make sure you do the study guide that I give you today. But basically, are you going to set two things equal to each other? Meaning, like, are they congruent, or Are you going to add them up to 180 degrees, meaning they're supplementary? So knowing the difference between both of those types of problems will be helpful for tomorrow. The last thing is know how to prove a parallelogram using any of the methods and be able to explain why you use each method. So I kind of asked you guys this question on, I think, Wednesday's quiz, but what does it mean to use the slope formula? What are you actually finding when you're using slope formula? Oh, slope formula is to show that two sides are parallel, whereas distance formula is showing that two sides are congruent. Like, those are two different things that you're doing with those two formulas. They're not doing the same thing. Because there's a question in your quiz that asks you to prove that a parallelogram is a parallelogram, and then you're going to have to explain why. And if you just say, because it is, you're not going to get your full points, okay? I want to see that you know what does it mean to be to use a slope formula, okay? And so make sure you have those formulas in your notes somewhere that you can use. All right? I think that's everything I have as far as Thursday and Friday goes. If there's anything that I didn't make very clear, please reach out to me. I can only help unless you ask me for help. I can't just read your minds, okay? In a second, I'm going to show the answer key for your problems that you did on Wednesday. So just take a second, pause this, get down anything you did not get right. The other thing with this sheet is on these problems, I kind of wrote like a little paragraph of this is what I expect when I say explain why something is not or explain why something is. This is what I'm kind of looking for. I could go into even more detail by saying like, oh, these are this is a parallelogram because both pairs of opposite sides have the same slope of 5/4 and then 1/7. So you could get into even more detail and that would give you even more points. I just was running out of room on this page, but these are what I'm looking for when you are explaining something. So make sure you have this down as kind of like a reference if you're unsure of what I mean by explaining. Okay, the rest of this is going to be me going over some problems for review. So if you want to try the review on your own, you can pause the video now and then come back to it once you're done with all the problems. But I'm going to get started with number 1. So number 1, we are finding the value of each variable in the following parallelograms. So I know these are parallelograms. So in number 1, I'm just given, it looks like some side measures. So sides we know are the opposite sides are going to be congruent to each other. So that means these two sides and these two sides would be congruent to each other. And then we also know they're parallel, but knowing that they're parallel doesn't really help with their actual measurements. So if I know that 3a minus 4 and a plus 2 are equal, I'm just going to set them equal to each other. So 3a minus 4 equals a plus 2. And then I can solve for a. So maybe I add 4. You get 3a equals a plus 6. Subtract a, and you get 2a equals 6. Divide by 2, and a equals 3. Okay? Now I gotta find b, so now I'm gonna use the fact that xw and yz are congruent, so I'm gonna have b plus 1 equals 2b. And this turns out to be really simple because all I got to do is subtract b, and I get 1 equals b, because 2 minus 1 is 1. Okay? Now if I move on to number 2, now I'm dealing with some angle measurements, and you can tell they're angle measurements, 1, because they're inside the parallelogram, okay? But they also have these little circles, those are the degrees. So angles are always measured with degrees. So if you see anything with this little circle, that means it's an angle measure, not a side measure. So some things we know about angle measures are opposite angles are congruent. So that means they're equal to each other. And then consecutive angles are supplementary. And supplementary means they add up to 180 degrees. Right? So if I look at my picture, I have angle A would be opposite of angle C. So angle A and angle C are congruent. And then I know that angle B and angle D are opposite of each other, and they're congruent. So let's start with angle A and C, because I know A and C are congruent. So if I have angle A is y plus 10, that means it should equal 2y minus 40. Okay? And another reason why I started with A and C is because A and C, looking at those algebraic expressions, they both have the same variable, okay? So we only know how to solve for a single variable in a linear equation. If you started with angles A and B, then you would have an x and a y, okay? And so then you get pretty stuck. So always try to just have one single variable with whatever you're working with. So if I solve for y, I could subtract y, and I get 10 equals y minus 40, add 40 to both sides, and so y equals 50. Okay, so if I know y equals 50, I could then plug in y for both of these angles. So then I know that angle A is 50 plus 10, so angle A is 60 degrees, okay? Now we know angle A and C are congruent, so that makes angle C also 60 degrees, and if we plugged in for y, we should get 60, okay? So now I'm going to think about how can I solve for x. Well, if you look at angles A and B are what we call consecutive angles. They're right next to each other, okay? They're right after each other, I should say. So opposite means they're right across from each other, whereas consecutive means like they're right next to each other, or right after each other. So angle A plus angle B should add up to 180, okay? Because they are those consecutive angles, and that's one of our properties. So I'm going to have angle A, which I know is 60 degrees now, plus angle B, which is 4x, equals 180. So I'm going to subtract 60, and I get 4x equals 120. Divide by 4, x equals 30. And that's it. Number 3 deals with the diagonal. So the diagonal property states that the diagonals bisect each other. So bisecting means you're splitting it into two equal halves. So when I talk about these two, this is a diagonal, this is a diagonal, what they're doing is they're making this congruent to this, and then this congruent to this. Okay? So it's not necessarily making 4 equal segments, it's just making 2 pairs of equal segments. Okay? So using that, I know that this segment, which is y plus 3, should equal 12. So I'm going to have y plus 3 equal 12. Subtract 3 from both sides. I'm going to get y equals 9. Then for my x, I know that x minus 3 equals 15. Add 3. And x equals 18. Alright, so for 4, 5, 6, and 7, we're using this parallelogram below. Okay. So again, if it has the degree measure, that means it's talking about the angle. If it does not have the degree measure, like this 23, that means it's talking about the side. Okay. And again, the degrees are inside and the side measures are outside. Okay? So looking at this to start out, I'm told that this angle right here is 30 and this angle right here is 25. So if I wanted to know the whole angle of angle R in the parallelogram, I would just add those together and I would get 55. So I'm going to make note of that. That entire angle is 55 degrees. Now my next thing is I'm going to find the measure of angle RST. So angle RST would be RST. So that means this guy right here. Okay? If I compare this whole green angle, angle R to angle S, really I'm just finding angle S. Angle R and S are what we call those consecutive angles again. So they're going to add up to 180. So I'm going to have 55 plus, I'm going to call it angle S to shorten it, equals 180. Subtract 55. And so I get angle RST or angle S, however you want to look at it, to be 125 degrees. Okay? Whoops. Don't want to undo that. Now, when I think about finding STU, so angle STU, I'm actually going to erase this blue. Angle STU would be really just angle T, okay, in the parallelogram. So looking at angle T compared to angle R, those are opposite angles, so opposite angles in a parallelogram are always going to be congruent. So we already figured out angle R is at 55 degrees, so angle T also has to be 55 degrees. Okay, the last angle that I'm finding is angle TUR. So angle TUR would be right here. It's really angle U in the parallelogram. Now I could think about finding this by using consecutive angles or opposite angles. So the opposite angle from angle U would be angle S, which is what we found in number 4. So angle TUR is also going to be 125 degrees. Alright? Last thing we're going to do is find find what the variable B is. Now, B is dealing with the actual side measures, so I'm going to get rid of all those angle measures. So 4B minus 1 is talking about this side right here. And then 23 is talking about ST. Looking at those two sides, those are an example of two opposite sides. So opposite sides of a parallelogram are always congruent. So I'm going to have 4B minus 1 equals 23. Add 1. And I get 4B equals 24. Divide by 4. And B equals 6. This would be a good one to remember because I'm pretty sure there's one either identical or very similar to this on the quiz, just so you know. The last two problems are going to be proving problems, and I'm not going to write out how you would justify or explain. I'm just going to talk through that, so hopefully you're good listeners because I can't type that fast while I talk. So for number 8, we're determining whether the figure is a parallelogram, and they're being very specific, we're going to use this slope formula. On your quiz tomorrow, I'm not going to be as specific. I'm going to just say, hey, prove this is a parallelogram and explain why. So you're going to have to tell me what method you're actually using and then kind of show your work in that explanation. So if you're using slope formula, I should see somewhere in your explanation, oh, I found their slopes, all the slopes for this pair should have been this, and then the slopes for the other pair were this, so they were the same. So starting out, slope formula is m equals y1 minus y2 over x1 minus x2. A big misconception I saw when I was like quickly grading your Wednesday assignment was a lot of you put your x's over your y's. Okay, make sure it's y over x. You could also do y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So for 8, if I think about my parallelogram being P, S, F, T, you always want to go in order. I want to show that PS is parallel to TF first. So I'm going to find the slope of PS. I'm going to take 1 minus 2 divided by negative 5 minus negative 2, so negative 5 plus 2. Then I get negative 1 over negative 3, which is the same as just 1/3. So now my hope is that TF, the slope of TF is also 1/3. So with TF, I'm going to do negative 3 minus negative 2, so that turns into plus 2. Negative 1 minus 2. Negative 3 plus 2 is negative 1. Negative 1 minus 2 is negative 3. So I do, again, get 1/3. So far, so good. Next, I'm going to see if this other pair of sides is parallel. Okay, so PT, I have 1 minus negative 2, so 1 plus 2, and then negative 5 minus 2, 3 over negative 7. Oh, that's not a 7. And that's as simplified as I can go. Then I'm going to find the slope of SF. And so I have 2 minus negative 3, so 2 plus 3. And negative 2 minus negative 1, so plus 1. And I get 5, over negative 1. So that would just be negative 5. Negative 5 is not congruent to 3 over negative 7. So no, this is not a parallelogram. And so if you had this problem on your quiz tomorrow, you would say, no, this is not a parallelogram. I found one pair of sides that were parallel, both having a slope of 1/3, but the other pair of sides were not parallel. They had different slopes. That's what I'm looking for, okay? And then for 9 is going to be an example using distance formula and slope formula. I chose this one because I think everyone pretty much got the distance formula down on your problem yesterday, so I thought we didn't really need to go over that one as well. So this parallelogram is ROMY. ROMY, like Romy. The distance formula is x1 minus x2 squared plus y1 minus y2 squared. Okay, so using distance and slope, you only have to show one pair of sides. So I'm just going to focus on RO and YM. So I have to show they're congruent first. Their distances are congruent. So my distance for RO is going to be the square root. It's probably way too long. of negative 2 minus 1 squared plus 5 minus 3 squared. And so I get square root of negative 3 squared plus 2 squared. Okay, so this negative 3, you want to keep that in parentheses when you're squaring it, because otherwise you're going to get a negative number. So when I square negative 3, I get 9. And then when I square 2, I get 4. So 9 plus 4 is 13, so this equals the square root of 13. So that's RO. Now I gotta find YM. So YM is going to be the square root of negative 3 minus negative 6, so plus 6 squared, plus negative 4 minus negative 2, so plus 2 squared. Okay, so if I have negative 3 plus 6, that's the same as 3 squared, plus, and then negative 4 plus 2, that's the same as negative 2 squared. This looks similar to what I have above. And so 3 squared, that turns into 9. And negative 2 squared turns into 4. 9 plus 4, still 13. So I get square root of 13 again. So that's good. I now know that those are both parallel, or not parallel, they're congruent. Using distance formula, you're showing that they're congruent. Now I gotta prove that they're parallel. So RO and YM. So I'm gonna find slope of RO. It's gonna be 5 minus 3. My y's on top. Negative 2 minus 1. I'm going in the same order too. That's really important. So 5 minus 3 is 2 over negative 3. Then the slope of MY is negative 4 plus 2 over negative 3 minus negative 6, so plus 6. And so I get negative 2 over negative 3 plus 6 is positive 3. So I still get negative 2/3. So we are good with showing that those two sides are parallel. So we have enough information to say yes, it is a parallelogram. To explain yourself with this one, you would say yes, it is a parallelogram, and I think I just covered my mic, so sorry. But yes, it is a parallelogram because we found the distance of one pair of sides to be congruent, and we also found their slopes to be the same, so that means they're also parallel to each other. And you were given those measurements as well. Okay, so I think that's all I have for you guys today. I still really miss you all, and I hope you're doing well. Please let me know if you want a conference, and I can set that up, okay? But be safe, reach out, let me know.